This 2020-21 Vendee Globe Round the World Race Report is brought to you by Pantania's Professional Race Cover, your tailor-made racing yacht insurance. At 260 miles to the equator this morning, and in an easterly trade wind, which has built and rotated right a little since the minor pinch point at Recife, the leading trio of IMOCAs, Apivia, Bureau Valet and Sea Explorer Yacht Club de Monaco, have accelerated slightly, returning average speeds of between 17.5 and 19 knots. Charlie Dallin, Louis Burton, and Boari Hermann have all gained slightly on fourth-place Thomas Ryan, who is, unfortunately, not able to match the leader's speed, with no usable port foil. The 24 hours average speed for Ryan is 13.9 knots compared with between 15 and 16 for the leading trio. And after 69 days racing, here is the point coming up where the tracks of the ascent crosses that of the descent, the return courses crossing or at least passing close to the outwards routes. The Doldrums are the next hurdle. The intertropical convergence zone is in the crosshairs, with its normal diet of squally showers, wind holes and unsettled, shifty breezes. In theory the first in should be the first out, but not necessarily. Logically, this crossing of the Doldrums from south to north will be around 32 degrees west, usually between 29 degrees and 34 degrees, and it is this point of crossing that we will have to be determined this Saturday. Looking at the current choices, Thomas Ryan, linked out, should be most westerly at 33 degrees 30 west, the leading trio Charlie Dallin, Apivia, Louis Burton, Bureau Valet 2, and Boari Hermann, Sea Explorer Yacht Club de Monaco, 1 degree more east at 32 degrees 30, and Damien Seguin, Apostle Group, a full 2 degrees or about 120 miles more west, at 30 degrees 30 west. Each skipper has sophisticated tools, satellite photos, virtual images, weather forecasts, cloud evolutions, etc., which above all, make it possible to avoid areas of squalls which theoretically, are less developed, and less violent to the west of the meridian 30 degrees west. So it should be a good day for the leaders whose exit point is very much determining their initial angle into the northeasterly trades, and for the first part of the climb towards the Azores high-pressure ridge, which seems to be diminishing slightly. The ITCZ is largely between the equator and 3 degrees 30 north, or about 200 miles wide, and sees about 10 knots of wind, quite stable in strength more east in direction. This suggests that the slowdown will be temporary, just a slowdown, not a stop. And it could be down to the timing at dusk, and night or by dawn, which proves a net compression or expansion among the leaders.
So it's very close at the front of the Vendee Globe fleet at the moment. It's quite interesting to look at the finer details of the boats at the moment, and we can use some of the data from the dashboard on Boari Hermann Racing website. So we can see that further to the south, where the fleet have kind of been sailing yesterday afternoon and throughout today, they've had kind of nice easterly wind, but slowly as they sail further north, the wind, as it typically does in the trade winds, is going back down towards the southeast, is turning to the right, and we can see on the true wind angle how it slowly increased from 75 up to about 100. And if we look at about an hour and a half ago, we can see where the boat slowed down and Boris bore away, that he made a sail change to a more downwind sail. He went from the J2 to the J1.5. You can see that by looking at the J2 rig load data. You can see that it massively dropped off here, which means that he's probably on the J1.5 sail, which is more suited to this downwind angles of sort of 110 true wind angle, which is what he's sailing right now. So it's quite useful to look at the data to see what's going on there, but that will help him as he goes further north and the wind continues to turn right. But it's also interesting if we look at the fleet are currently sailing past the coast of Brazil. You've got Recife here, which they'll be passing soon, so that's just there. We can see that everyone's left a bit of a gap, so it's about 30 miles to Apivia and Louis Burton from the coast, and that's basically because if you get too close to the coast, you can end up with firstly a counter current down here, which you'll have to fight against, which won't help you in your route north, but also the wind will tend to diverge a bit if you get too close to the coast. So what that means is the land will have a big influence on the wind, and you can have less wind all along the coast here. So that's why the boats will be trying to avoid kind of sailing too close to this part of the coast. Boris over here is further to the east than these boats, so he'll he's definitely well out the way of this. But as we go further forward, so what's going to happen is the wind's going to continue to turn to the right as they sail further and further north. And the next feature that the fleet will be looking for is at the Doldrums, which is currently about 1 degree north, kind of the entrance to the Doldrum. So just after they've passed the equator, and they're expected to be somewhere in the region of entering it at 0600 UTC on the 17th of January, so about 36 hours from now. And at the moment, the Doldrums are looking slightly complicated. They're not going to be as easy as usual, so potentially there could be some slow-ups in the fleet here. As we get closer, we'll have a slightly better picture, but Boris is really going to have to think about which route he chooses to take through the Doldrums. We'll have a look at a few weather features later on as he gets closer, but he could either choose to sail further towards the west in this direction, or he could choose to sail further to the east, depending on where he thinks the Doldrums will have the most wind. But also he'll want to think a bit about his strategy going to the North Atlantic. We can see that these northeasterly winds here, if you imagine if you cross it further towards the east, then he'll have a better angle to sail in this direction once he gets through the Doldrums than if he was to cross over here and have to sail a more upwind angle to make his way to the north. So something to think about as he approaches the Doldrums, but for now it's still a drag race up to the north.
So let's have a little look at this problem. So here I am, here, heading northeast, and originally I had thought I could do the same strategy as these guys, which was to use this westerly flow here to make it to the east and then come up that way, but I'm not as fast as they are. And if we just advance the weather on, just looking in the bottom left hand corner, this nasty little low pressure system develops. So there it is, there's the centre of the low there, and then what we want to look at here is the front that comes ahead of it. So there are winds there in particular, so that is 35 knots on the grid file, which means it'll be about 50 in reality, and then there's a 40 knotter up there, and you can see my course would have taken me slap bang through the middle of this really bad load of wind, which means my only choice is to go off to the west here, pass through the centre of the low, and then come up the back to avoid that wind.
Bienvenue au Club Med. Je suis pas malheureuse là. Bon, il n'y a pas beaucoup de vent, je vais pas très vite vers le but, mais en même temps je suis pas trop mal ici. C'est sûr que quand c'est comme ça, on a une espèce de relâchement du corps, de l'esprit. Parce que j'avance quand même, il y a un tout petit peu de vent. Et puis c'est quand même des machines de guerre ces bateaux dans ces conditions. Là il y a 4 nœuds de vent après. Mon anémo là-haut il est pas hyper fiable, mais il y a 4 nœuds de vent, je vais à 5-6 nœuds. Souffro. Au risque de vous agacer, vous qui êtes dans la grisaille et le froid de l'hiver métropolitain ou ailleurs, j'ai pris un coup de soleil. Un quart d'heure dehors et voilà, le résultat. C'est le monde des extrêmes. Le vent des globes. Regardez, il y a pas un souffle d'air. Enfin, il y a un tout petit souffle d'air. Si on arrive à voir la couleur de l'eau, mais elle est bleue, bleue. C'est calme. C'est très calme. Faut garder son sang-froid. Ça correspond pas à grand chose le vent là. Une journée de pétole. J'ai pas avancé d'un radis aujourd'hui. Ça va, je l'ai plutôt bien vécu. J'ai fait des petites réparations. J'ai rangé mon bateau. Disons qu'il va falloir que le vent se lève à un moment pour que... Mais là c'est joli et et c'est apaisant.
If you're taking your racing to the next level, make sure your insurance is up to the challenge. Pantanius Professional Race Cover.
Hi Andy and hi everyone there. It's nice to know a couple of German friends and Will and Holly around. Nice group you have united there today. I'm very good, thank you. It is a little bit more livable. The extreme heat I was suffering a bit from yesterday is better today, and last night was better, and also the squalls are more modest, and therefore I could. The wind is also lifting; it's going aft. I'm at 90 truant angle now, and you know that's the angle where the foils work best. So that's also why you see this stepping up in speed. It's just our phase here of the race where we have the biggest benefit from the foils, really. Well, yeah, I can only grasp a little bit from here the German situation, but I'm quite communicative through WhatsApp, so I get some feedback of people who I know or don't know, and messages transmitted, and it's very touching sometimes. You know, I had someone who said my wife just got diagnosed cancer, and we see your struggle out there, so that gives us the courage to also live our struggle back here. So you know, there was some amazing energy coming back also from these fans and from people, kids that build little models in their child room, and school classes following. So it has been an amazing exchange, and also the media really picked up the topic much more than in the previous editions. Of course, when there was no German competitor, there was much less media attention, but I had never thought that the main news would like bring it several times and so on, and yeah, I'm really happy to see that. Thank you, Sunny. So great to hear you're here, and good to know you're in Villamoura despite the COVID crisis. You can continue your training, and I'm so proud of you too to be qualified for the games. I'm sure you can bring a medal to Germany. And also you are inspiring me all these years. It has been almost like 12 years. I think you're following this Olympic dream. It is at least as tough as following the Vendee dream, making it happen, pulling a project together, and you did that in your sport of sailing, and I wish you all the best for that. And I'm sure we will soon sail together on some kind of boat. So cheers, back to Portugal. Yeah, good to hear you, Harm, and I'm sure we get. I hope we get our opportunity to catch up for coffee in our neighborhood in Hamburg, where we sometimes see each other by coincidence. Harm is doing a professional project, a work project in my neighborhood, and I see him sometimes in front of my living room, which is quite funny. But you know, Harm, this is just the beginning. The digital age is just entering sailing, and we are so on a back foot compared to other sports. You know, why don't we have cameras live full time all the time, like Big Brother? And that's, I mean, technologically that would be already possible. And we are a bit conservative maybe in sailing. We move a bit slower on that, but. That will come for sure in the next edition or the one after that. That you just switch on and you see the jibe happening live, or the sail change, or the struggles and so on. So no, I'm glad you appreciate it, and thanks for your support. Yeah, what we observe at the moment is a kind of drag racing mode. So it is relatively flat sea. It is good conditions for everyone to go fast, more or less. And this will remain for the next 6 days, 6-7 days, and then we enter the northern hemisphere westerly low pressure system regime, and their strategy will open up. You can see big splits of 300-400 miles. Someone going jibing earlier or jibing later, approaching the lows differently. And I know that Apivia is really strong downwind in breeze, probably a bit stronger than us. So that remains the strong favorite of this race for sure. But for me, already being able to put some pressure on is a fantastic opportunity here, as close as possible. And yeah, and as I said, the real kind of opening up of the game will be the last 4 days, really, I think. So from the a little bit before the Azores, and then going into the Bay of Brittany, Bay of Biscay, we could see a massive low pressure there, and huge differences in speed and angle. And then
see our Vendee Globe reports on youtube.com World on Water, or our website, boatson.tv. This 2020-21 Vendee Globe Round the World Race Report was brought to you by Pantania's Professional Race Cover, your tailor-made racing yacht insurance.